You know what the problem with common sense is? It's not that common. I say it all the time. And every single day I walk into this courtroom and have that theory proven right in front of my face. People think they can come in here, spin a fairy tale, bat their eyelashes, and I'm going to buy it. Baloney. I've been in this business longer than most of these litigants have been alive. I was a prosecutor. I was a supervising judge in family court. I have heard every lie, every excuse, and every half-baked justification for bad behavior that the human brain can concoct. So when I sit in this chair, I don't just listen with my ears. I listen with my gut. And my gut is rarely wrong. I adjusted my robe, took a sip of water, and looked at the docket. It was a Tuesday, which usually means I'm already running low on patience. But today, the air felt different. Heavy, stiff. Bird, my bailiff, was standing at his usual post, looking as immovable as a mountain. I gave him a nod. He knows the drill. We don't waste time here. We don't do and we certainly don't do I forgot. Next case, I said, my voice cutting through the silence of the room. Bird looked at the sheet. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. Case number 409. Plaintiff is suing for unpaid loans and emotional distress. Defendant claims the money was a gift. A gift. It's always a gift. If I had a dime for every time someone stood there and told me a loan was a gift, I'd own a small island in the Caribbean, and I wouldn't be sitting here dealing with people who can't balance a checkbook. Bring them in. I ordered. The doors opened. On the plaintiff's side walked in a man who looked like he'd spent the morning arguing with a barista about the foam on his cappuccino. Sharp suit, expensive watch, hair gelled within an inch of its life. He walked with a bounce, a swagger. He looked ready to talk. He looked like he loved the sound of his own voice. I marked him immediately. Arrogant. He reached the podium, placed his hands on it, and looked at me with a smirk that said, I've got this in the bag. I didn't look at him. I looked at the other door. The defendant's door opened. And then nothing. I frowned. I looked at the paperwork. Arthur Lewis. I looked back at the door. Still nothing. I could hear a shuffling sound, a scrape against the linoleum, but no person had emerged. Mr. Lewis? I called out, my voice sharp. We're waiting. Today is not a rehearsal. Let's go. Then I saw it. First, the tip of a cane, a standard issue gray metal cane with a worn rubber foot. It hit the floor with a thud. Then a hand gripping the door frame so hard the knuckles were white. Then the man, he wasn't old, maybe in his 40s, but he looked like he'd lived 3 lifetimes. He was wearing a simple button-down shirt, tucked in, clean but faded. He had a hat in his hand, a baseball cap with insignia on it. I squinted. Veteran. He took a step. It wasn't a walk. It was a battle. He dragged his left leg forward, his face contorting in a grimace that he was trying desperately to hide. He planted the cane, took a breath that rattled in his chest, and heaved his right leg forward. Thud, scrape, step, thud, scrape, step. The courtroom was silent. Usually, there's a hum, a rustle of papers, people whispering. Not now. The only sound was the agonizingly slow progress of this man trying to make it to the defendant's podium. I watched him. I didn't say a word. My eyes darted to the plaintiff. He was checking his watch. He sighed, a loud, theatrical sigh. He rolled his eyes toward the ceiling as if to ask God why he was being punished with a slow walker. That did it. You got a problem? I asked, my voice low. The plaintiff, Mr. Jenkins, jumped a little. Excuse me, Your Honor? I asked if you have a problem, I repeated, leaning forward. Because I see you looking at your watch. I see you rolling your eyes. You have somewhere better to be? A lunch date? A sale at the mall? No, Your Honor, it's just. He gestured vaguely at Mr. Lewis, who was still only halfway to the podium, sweat beading on his forehead. We've been here all morning, and this is taking a while. It takes as long as it takes, I snapped. And if you roll your eyes one more time, I'm going to fine you for contempt before you even open your mouth to tell me your name. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Your Honor. he mumbled, looking down. Good. Zip it. I turned my attention back to Mr. Lewis. He was struggling, really struggling. This wasn't an act. I know actors. I've had people come in here with neck braces they bought at Walgreens 10 minutes before the trial. I've seen limps that switch from the left leg to the right leg halfway through the testimony. This man was in agony. I could see the tremors in his arm as he leaned his entire weight onto that cane. He looked up at me, his eyes meeting mine. There was shame there, embarrassment. He didn't want pity. He wanted to get to the podium and stand there like a man. He wanted to follow the protocol. Mr. Lewis, I said, my tone softening, just a fraction, not much, because I don't do soft, but enough to let him know I wasn't angry at him. Take your time. I'm sorry, Your Honor, he wheezed, his voice raspy. Legs not working so good today. I can see that, I said. Just get yourself settled. He took another step. He stumbled. The cane slipped on the slick floor. The audience gasped. He caught himself on the railing of the gallery, his face flushing red. Mr. Jenkins, the plaintiff, chuckled. A short, sharp sound. I whipped my head around. Something funny? No, You think a man falling down is funny? I asked. You think physical disability is a joke? You think because you're standing there in your $200 shoes that you're better than him? I didn't say that. You didn't have to say it. You laughed. You're laughing at a man who was clearly in pain. That tells me everything I need to know about your character, Mr. Jenkins. And let me tell you something about my courtroom. Character counts. If you're a louse in life, you're probably a louse in business. And I'm going to scrutinize every single word that comes out of your mouth with a microscope. So if I were you, I'd wipe that smirk off my face and stand there like a statue until I address you. He went pale. He shut his mouth. Good. I looked back at Mr. Lewis. He had regained his balance, but he was exhausted. He was still 10 feet away from the podium. He was breathing hard, shaking. I felt a surge of irritation, not at him, at the system, at the layout of this room, at the fact that a man who clearly served his country, I could tell by the hat, by the bearing, by the yes, ma'am attitude, was having to navigate an obstacle course just to defend himself against this suit-wearing hyena. He took another step. He winced. Okay, I said. Stop. He froze, looking terrified. I'm coming, Your Honor. I'm coming. I said, stop, Mr. Lewis. Just stay right there. He stood there, leaning heavily on the railing, looking confused. The whole room was holding its breath. They didn't know what I was going to do. Usually, I yell. Usually, I tell people to uncross their arms or take their hands out of their pockets. They were waiting for the hammer to drop. I looked at the distance between him and the podium. Then I looked at the distance between him and the chair behind the plaintiff's table. Too far. Bird, I said. Judge, get him a chair. Put it right where he is. Bird moved instantly. He grabbed a chair from the side and placed it right behind Mr. Lewis. Here you go, sir. Have a seat. Mr. Lewis looked at the chair, then at me. I can stand, Your Honor. I want to stand. Mr. Lewis, I said, leaning back in my chair, you are not here to prove you can stand. You are here to answer a lawsuit. I need your brain, not your legs. Sit down. He hesitated. Pride is a funny thing. It keeps you going when you should quit, but it also makes you stupid when you should accept help. I could see the war in his eyes. He didn't want to look weak in front of the man suing him. Sit, I commanded. That is an order. He slowly lowered himself into the chair, letting out a long breath of relief as the weight came off his legs. He placed his cane across his lap and set his hat on his knee. He looked small in the chair, but his eyes were sharp. Thank you, Your Honor, he said quietly. Don't mention it, I said briskly. Now, let's get to the bottom of this nonsense. Mr. Jenkins, you filed this complaint. You say you loaned Mr. Lewis $3,000 for a car, and he hasn't paid you back. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Jenkins said, his voice regaining some of its oily confidence now that the distraction was over. I tried to be a good friend. I tried to help him out. He was down on his luck, with the condition and all. He waved a hand dismissively toward Mr. Lewis, so I loaned him the money. He promised to pay me back in 3 months. That was a year ago. I haven't seen a dime. Do you have a contract? I asked. Well, not a written one, no. It was a gentleman's agreement. We shook on it. A gentleman's agreement, I repeated, my tone dripping with skepticism. Between friends? Exactly. And how did you give him the money? Cash? Check? Cash, Your Honor. I took it out of my savings. I narrowed my eyes. You handed him $3,000 in cash with no receipt, no contract, no witnesses, and you expect me to just take your word for it? He's my friend. Or he was. I trusted him. I turned to Mr. Lewis. He was sitting up straight in the chair, his hands gripping the cane. Mr. Lewis, I said, did you borrow $3,000 from this man? No, ma'am, Mr. Lewis said firmly. I did not. Did he give you any money? He gave me $500, Your Honor, but it wasn't a loan. What was it? It was payment for a job. A job? I raised an eyebrow. I thought you said you couldn't walk. I can't walk well, ma'am, but I can fix things. I'm a mechanic. I was a mechanic in the Army for 20 years. Mr. Jenkins has a vintage Mustang. He couldn't get it started. No shop in town would touch it without charging him an arm and a leg. He asked me to look at it. I looked back at Jenkins. He was shifting his weight. He looked a little less confident now. Mr. Jenkins, I said, you didn't mention anything about a car repair. That's irrelevant, Your Honor. He did some tinkering, sure, but that has nothing to do with the loan. The loan was for his car. He needed to buy a van. Mr. Lewis, did you buy a van? Yes, Your Honor. I bought a used van with a lift, but I paid for it with my disability back pay. I have the receipt right here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Bring it here, I said. He started to struggle to get up. Sit, I barked. Bird, get the paper. Bird walked over, took the paper, and handed it to me. I put on my reading glasses. I scanned the document. It was a bill of sale for a 2012 Dodge Caravan, paid in full, check number 405. This says you paid by check, I said. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins, I looked over the top of my glasses. If he paid for his car with a check from his own account, why did he need your $3,000 in cash? Maybe he needed it for insurance or gas. Look, Judge, I gave him the money. He's lying. He's taking advantage of me because he knows I have a soft spot for veterans. You have a soft spot? I asked, my voice getting dangerously quiet. You? Yes. I'm a patriot. You're a patriot who rolls his eyes when a soldier can't walk fast enough to suit your schedule? I was just impatient. You're a liar, I said. But we'll get to that. Mr. Lewis, tell me about the Mustang. It was a 68, Your Honor. Beautiful car. But the carburetor was shot and the timing was off. I spent 3 weeks working on it in his garage. I rebuilt the carb. I fixed the electrical. I got it running, purring like a kitten. And the $500? That was what he gave me for parts and labor. He said he'd pay me the rest later. He owes me money, Your Honor, but I didn't sue him. I just wanted to be done with him. Wait a minute, I interrupted. You fixed his car, he paid you $500, and he still owes you? How much was the agreed price? $1,500. He owes me $1,000. I looked at Jenkins. He was sweating now. Is this true, Mr. Jenkins? Did he fix your car? He looked at it, but he didn't fix it. It still runs terrible. Mr. Lewis, I said, do you have proof you worked on the car? I have photos on my phone, Your Honor, of the engine apart. And I have text messages from Mr. Jenkins thanking me for making it run so fast. Show me, I said. Mr. Lewis fumbled with his phone. His hands were shaking again. He dropped the phone on the floor. It skittered away, just out of his reach. He groaned and started to bend down, grabbing the arm of the chair, trying to leverage his body down without falling out of the chair completely. It was painful to watch. He couldn't reach it. His fingertips were inches away. He was straining, his face turning purple with effort. Jenkins stood there, He didn't move. He just watched. Bird started to move toward him, but he was all the way by my bench. I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I stood up. "Stay there, Bird," I said. I stepped down from the bench. I heard the gasp in the room. Judges don't come down. We stay up high. We stay separated. But I'm not just a judge. I'm a human being. And I was watching a man who served his country struggle to pick up a piece of plastic while a man in a cheap suit watched him like he was an insect. I walked across the well of the courtroom. My robes swished around my ankles. I walked right up to Mr. Lewis. He froze. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with shock. He stopped reaching. He looked terrified that he had done something wrong. "Your Honor, I'm sorry," he stammered. I didn't say a word. I bent down. I picked up the phone. I stood up and held it out to him. "Here," I said. He stared at the phone. Then he looked at me. His eyes welled up. His chin trembled. He took the phone with a shaking hand. "Thank you, ma'am," he whispered. "Thank you." I looked at him, really looked at him. "Mr. Lewis, were you injured in combat?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Iraq, 2004. IED. And you fixed this man's car?" "Yes, ma'am. I can't walk good, but my hands still work." I turned slowly. I pivoted on my heel to face Mr. Jenkins. I was standing on the floor now, on the same level as him. I wasn't looking down from the bench. I was looking him right in the eye, 5 feet away. "You," I said, and the word came out like a bullet. "Your Honor, Jenkins took a step back. "You let him drop his phone? You stood there? You watched a man who took shrapnel for this country struggle to pick up a telephone? And you didn't move a muscle? You didn't offer to help? You didn't show an ounce of human decency." I thought the bailiff. "I don't care what you thought," I yelled, and my voice echoed off the walls. "I care about what you did or what you didn't do. You claim he owes you money? You claim you're the victim here?" I'm standing right next to him. I can feel the pain coming off this man. "And you? All I feel coming off you is cheap cologne and lies." I held out my hand to Mr. Lewis. "Unlock the phone. Show me the texts." He tapped the screen with his thumb. He handed it back to me. I scrolled. "Oct 12. Car runs amazing. You're a wizard, Artie." "Oct 15. I'll get you the rest of the cash next week. Thanks again. Novone. Hey, stop asking me for the money. I'm a little short." I read them. Then I looked at Jenkins. I held the phone up so he could see it. "Is this your number?" I asked. He swallowed hard. I don't recall." "You don't recall?" I stepped closer. "Do you want me to have Bird call it right now? If this phone rings in your pocket, you're going to jail. Do you understand me? I will lock you up for perjury so fast your head will spin." He looked at the door. He looked at me. He looked at the floor. "It's my number," he whispered. "So you lied," I said. "You lied about the car being fixed. You lied about him owing you money. In fact, you owe him money. It was a misunderstanding. It was a hustle," I shouted. "You thought you could bully him. You thought because he's disabled, because he's quiet, because he doesn't have a fancy suit, you could drag him into court and scare him into paying you money he doesn't owe. You picked on the wrong guy, and you definitely walked into the wrong courtroom." I turned back to Mr. Lewis. I placed a hand on his shoulder. It was a rare gesture for me. I don't touch litigants. But this man deserved to know that someone was in his corner. "Mr. Lewis," I said softly, "you have a countersuit filed?" I didn't know how to do that, ma'am. I just wanted it to stop." "Well," I said, "justice isn't just about stopping the bad guys. It's about making the good guys whole." I walked back to the bench. I didn't rush. I wanted Jenkins to sweat. I climbed the steps, sat down, and adjusted my robe. I picked up my gavel. I loved the weight of it in my hand. It felt like the truth. "Mr. Jenkins," I said, "your case is dismissed. It is a fabrication. It is a waste of my time and the taxpayers' money." "Quiet! I'm not done. Since you admitted to the texts, and you admitted under threat of perjury that you owe him money for the repair, I am amending the judgment. Judgment for the defendant in the amount of $1,000 for the unpaid labor. Jenkins' jaw dropped. You can't do that. He didn't sue me. I can do whatever I want, I said with a smile that wasn't friendly. It's my courtroom, and I'm finding that your lawsuit was frivolous and malicious. I'm also awarding Mr. Lewis $500 for his travel expenses and lost time today. That's $1,500. You will pay him within 5 days. I looked at Mr. Lewis. He was smiling, a real smile this time. Mr. Lewis, I said, thank you for your service and thank you for your patience with, I gestured toward Jenkins, the idiocy of the general public. Thank you, Judge, he said. And Mr. Jenkins, I said, as he started to pack up his briefcase. He looked up, terrified. If I were you, I said, leaning into the microphone, I'd hold the door for him on the way out. Don't make me come down there again. Bang! We're done, I said. I stood up and turned my back on them before they could say another word. But as I walked toward my chambers, I heard the sound of the door opening, and I heard a distinct lack of the cane hitting the door frame. After you, Mr. Lewis, I heard Jenkins say, his voice shaking. Thank you, Mr. Lewis replied. I smiled to myself. Sometimes you have to come down from the mountain to move the mountain. Common sense might not be common, but in my courtroom, justice is mandatory.